Pitch on the way to Garvey. Hit high to right center field. Way back. Going. In it. Gone. The Padres win it.
It's time for the 10th inning.
Gibson swings and a fly ball to deep right field. This is going to be a home run. Unbelievable.
Put me in cold. I'm ready to play today. Put me in cold. I'm ready to play today. Look at me. I can be center field.
This is the 10th inning with Nick Mattos.
Hello, and thanks for joining us today on the 10th inning. Today we're going to cover the games 1 and 2 of the World Series between the Chicago Cubs and the Cleveland Indians, and we're going to preview games 3, 4, and 5 that are going to be played in Chicago for the first time. They're going to be hosting a World Series since 1948. I'm Nick Mattos, and I host a show, Overtime with Nick and Bob, Sundays from 4 to 6 p.m. on KSRO in Sonoma County, 1350 AM and 103.5 FM. And today joining us on the 10th inning is my co-host and my funk soul brother, Bob Seymour. And we're going to talk to Bob here in just a moment. The Cubs got to this point in the World Series by defeating two teams to get here. They knocked off the Dodgers last week to get to the World Series for the first time, as I mentioned, since 1948. And the Cleveland Indians knocked off the Toronto Blue Jays to reach this World Series here, 2016. Hey, Bob, thanks for joining us today.
Hey, you're welcome, bro. Always a pleasure. Always glad to talk sports with my brother. So.
Well, you're my funk soul brother and my co-host. And the Cleveland Indians were a team that you picked at the beginning of the season to get to this World Series, and I thought it was a pretty good call on your part, an excellent call, I want to say, not a pretty good call, an excellent call, because I really thought the Kansas City Royals were going to be back here to try to defend their title. They didn't have a very good season. The Cleveland Indians stepped it up. They've got some great pitching, and in Game 1, behind the 2014 Cy Young Award winner Corey Kluber, they just showed exactly the formula that they needed to do to get here, Bob. Their pitching their pitching's been lights out.
Oh, no question about it. Corey Kluber, as you pointed out, 2014 Cy Young Award winner. I think he went 18-9 this year, but he really showed what he's made of in that first game. I mean, I believe he set a World Series record by striking out 8 of the first 9 batters, and just got ahead, just had some wicked stuff. The Cubs didn't really have anything for him. And then 6-7 innings, Francota's got the magic wand. He brings out Miller. Although Miller struggled a little bit, I was surprised at how much Miller struggled. He walked a few people. I don't know if that was a strike zone or what, but Miller did struggle a little bit. But in the end, the formula for success was, get the starters to the 6th or 7th inning, and then get the bullpen in there. So. That's basically how it's been done for them all year. You got to give a shout-out to Roberto Perez, though. Roberto Perez hit 3 home runs all season, and he hit 2 in his first World Series game. So pretty amazing stuff there.
Yeah, that young catcher had the game of his life. And, Andrew Miller pitched the 2 innings in that game, and he threw 46 pitches. And I thought, there was no way he would be able to come back in Game 2. He did not make an appearance in Game 2, but it's a good thing because he would have probably strapped it on and gotten back out there. But 46 pitches was the most pitches he had thrown in any relief appearance all season long. So, I think all guns are going to be ready to be fired on Game 3 here Friday night. That game was definitely a 6-0 trouncing by the Cleveland Indians. The Cubs just really couldn't get anything going. And it's funny because in these games, Bob, in the postseason, the team that scores first has a great advantage. Matter of fact, out of the 13 teams here that have scored first, they've won every game. So they're 13-0. So the team that gets on the board first, that bodes well.
Well, I think that's all. I mean, it doesn't matter if it's a World Series, whatever game it is. I think if you're able to get out there, get on the board early, I mean, it's never a bad thing. to be the first one on the board, first inning, second inning, whatever. So yeah, and I think it bodes well for you. It gives your pitcher a little bit of comfort level, and that's very important. Particularly, I mean, we all know these are going to be close, although not that close games. But I mean, everything's on the line here. So I mean, you want to try to give them as much of a relief as you can. So certainly, trying to getting runs early is a big help. No question about that.
Yeah, Bob, and Terry Francona, that was his 9th consecutive World Series victory. He had gone 4-0 in his 2 appearances with the Boston Red Sox in 2004 and 2007. Going into Game 2, he hadn't lost a World Series game, and Game 2 was quite a performance by Jake Arrieta. We mentioned that in 2014, the Cy Young Award winner was Corey Kluber. Well, the Cy Young Award winner was Jake Arrieta in 2015, and he looked really solid in that game last night. He, didn't allow a hit for the first 6 innings. Again, that formula of strong pitching, good defense, and timely hitting. The Cubs got on the board in the first inning in the second game there. And again, there's that formula: get on the board early and win the game. And the Cubs just coasted to the 5-1 victory in that game. But in that game, Bob, something interesting happened. It happened in Game 1, where the Cubs put Kyle Schwarber on the roster. And Kyle Schwarber had not had 10 at-bats the whole season. Got injured in the 3rd game of the season there for the Cubs, and was on the DL list and worked his way back, and they put him on the World Series roster, Bob, and he's made an impact.
Well, I think, he tore 2. I think he tore his ACL and his LCL, and he was out like over 200 days. And as you can submit a new roster for every series. Submit a roster for the playoff, for the wild card game, first round of the playoffs, second round of the playoffs. So they made the decision. Madden, probably Theo Epstein, made the decision that, hey, we could use this kid's left-handed. I guess he did go to the instructional league. He's been rehabbing. He went to the instructional league. He had like 6 or 7 at-bats. He got a couple hits. They liked the way he swung the bat. I guess they decided that they could use his left-handed bat off the bench, particularly in the games where they can DH. Now, he'll probably be sitting down for the next 3 days because he doesn't really have a position. He was kind of a catcher. They're certainly not going to put him in the outfield. So he's probably going to be a pinch hitter for the next 3 games. But maybe when they get back to, if and when they do get back to Cleveland, they got the opportunity to put him back in the lineup. And he certainly was a factor. The young man proved he can hit the ball. Even in the 3 games that he played in the regular season, he made an impact. I saw him playing. I mean, the young man can hit the ball. There's no question about it. He's got torso rotation that's unbelievable, rotational movement. I mean, he can put the bat on the ball and hit it a long way. So I'm sure it was kind of a no-brainer for Madden and Theo Epstein once they saw the kid was, another bat like that, it's not going to hurt you. Although I question the defensive liability because not necessarily defensive liability, but he doesn't really have a position. If you put him out there, who are you going to sit down? Particularly in big games that mean very much. So, that would be the only question mark in my mind.
I agree with you. He will not be playing the field unless it's late in the game. I could see a scenario where possibly they want to get him up in the 5th or 6th inning if there's a situation for him to bat and hit at that situation, and then maybe put him in the field. He does play left field. He could possibly go out there for an inning or 2 if they needed him to. But I agree with you. I don't see him doing anything other than pinch hitting in a clutch situation. But I just love looking at the guy. He reminds me of a fire hydrant with alligator arms, okay? He's just got a body about him and he takes a heck of a swing. When he swings that bat, he's really got a great swing. And yesterday in the game, he gets 2 hits and 2 RBIs and just made a huge impact. And, the other player for Chicago that's stepping up now is Ben Zobrist. Zobrist won that World Series last year with the Kansas City Royals, and he's just a veteran clutch player. And, he was playing second base, and they got Baez came to the Cubs, and they moved Ben out to left field, and he's done a fine job out there. If the Cubs go on and win this series, Ben Zobrist is a guy that could be the MVP because he's really hitting the ball real well. He's a calming influence. We mentioned the Cleveland Indians, and their hot hitter coming into this game was Francisco Lindor. And, he's continued to do well, Bob. And Mike Napoli, he's another guy you mentioned about, he's really come up and got some clutch hits. And I wanted to ask you something about Mike Napoli, Bob, and I thought this was really, I'm going to say, bizarre, that he was diagnosed with sleep apnea, hadn't been sleeping very well all the time. For a long time, he was not able to sleep more than a couple hours at a time. And now that he's with the Cleveland Indians, they diagnosed this. He's getting full night sleeps, and he's doing much better. Are you telling me that throughout his entire career with other players and other teams, nobody diagnosed this?
Apparently not. Apparently he was, And the other thing about it is maybe it's something that he didn't really bring to the forefront, but it's obvious Cleveland did their due diligence because they signed him to a free agent contract this year. So they obviously did their due diligence, probably had maybe went to a sleep clinic or something like else and figured it out. But I'm kind of like you. I'm a little bit mystified with the fact that it took that. I mean, the dude's been in the league for 12 or 13 years. He's played for a number of teams. He's played in the World Series for the Red Sox. So for all after all that time to all of a sudden discover that you have this, I think the hats off to the Cleveland Indians. Quite frankly, I mean, they obviously, as I just pointed out, they did their due diligence. They had him completely checked out. They found out, hey, you got a little problem here. And you look at the season that he had for me, basically not led them to the World Series, but is a huge factor, for a huge reason that they are in the World Series. Getting back to Kyle Schwarber for just a quick second, too, you never know what Madden's going to do. I know earlier in the game this year, he had, what's the pitcher's name, Travis? The one that hit the home run. I can't think. Anyway, he had a pitcher pitch 2 innings, go out and play left field for 2 innings, where he made a catch and hit a home run, and then he brought him back in and had him pitch again. So you never know what Madden's going to do. He could, he can surprise you with stuff like that. He had one of his pitchers pitch for 2 innings, go out and play outfield, where he made a catch and hit a home. The kid that hit the home run against the Giants, what's his name? I can't.
The relief pitcher for the Indians.
Yeah, no. The for the Cubs.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I can't think of his name. Anyway, but he's the kid that he had a home run against the Giants too. But he also hit a home run, played 2 innings in the outfield, and pitched 3 innings in one game for Madden. So you never know what Madden could come up with something for Schwarber. We could both be way off base, and Schwarber's out there starting in right field. Who knows? Getting back to your comments about Ben Zobrist, obviously the reason that everybody wanted him. He was a very hot commodity when he played for the A's. Everybody wanted him. Kansas City took him. He helped them get to the World Series. The Cubs went out and signed him to a huge contract, reunited him with Joe Madden, who he played with at Tampa Bay, and went to the World Series with Joe Madden at Tampa Bay. So, I mean, that has to be one of the keys to getting to the World Series. And the other thing about Ben Zobrist is, as you pointed out, his versatility. He could probably play second or third, or probably short, and he could play the outfield. I mean, how valuable is that? That's immeasurable. So,
well, let's look ahead to Game 3. I believe Game 3 is a really important game for the Chicago Cubs. There's a lot of pressure on those young players. They started 6 players last night that are 24 years and younger. That had never been done in World Series baseball before. And
that's an amazing number to me.
Yeah, and they're going back to Chicago now, where we mentioned earlier that they haven't hosted a World Series since 1948. There's going to be a lot of pressure on the Chicago Cubs. And I believe they need to win game number 3. Now, game number 3, there's obviously the series is 1-1, but game 3 to me is essential for the Cubs. If they can win that game, that's going to take a monkey off their back. They're going to feel good about what they're doing and what they can accomplish. If they don't win that game, I believe they're going to feel even more pressure for game 4, and the pressure could mount on each game after that. Now, I don't consider game 3 an essential game for Cleveland. I believe game 4 is the essential game for them. Now, if they happen to lose game 3, they have to win game 4. We know that game 5 is also going to be in Chicago, but game 6 and 7 are in Cleveland. So look for game 3 to be the pivotal game. If whoever wins that game is going to have a leg up on winning this World Series. And we talked about Josh Tomlin is going to be the pitcher for the Cleveland Indians. And you said, and you mentioned, and I think everybody thinks Corey Kluber is going to come back for game 4.
No, it's already been announced.
Yeah.
They're definitely going to start Corey Kluber in game 4.
Okay, and so for Chicago now, they've got Kyle Hendricks going to pitch Game 3. He had the lowest ERA in the National League. I expect him to keep the game, conservative, low scoring. I look for the speed of Cleveland to have to come into a factor here sooner or later. Cleveland has one of the fastest teams in baseball. From scoring from second base on singles, they were number 1 in baseball. Their stolen base percentage was number 2. They scored with runners in scoring position. They're just all of the speed factors, Bob, they're high on. Now, they weren't able to get anything going in Game 2, but I believe in Game 1 against John Lester, their speed intimidated Lester. He did not perform very well, and he's going to come back in Game 4 also. So look for Cleveland to try to do a little more with their base running and their speed.
I think Lackey's pitching Game 4 for them.
Okay, well then Game 5, and you know what? That may be better. That may be much better for Chicago, because I was pretty amazed that Lester doesn't like to throw over to the bases, and he's gotten this far in his career and doesn't like to throw over to bases at all. And everybody's aware of it. It's just amazing to me how that he just doesn't want to work on something like that as a professional. But the other
thing that's amazing to me is he doesn't fill his position at all. On that one ball in the first inning, he never even came off the mound. Bryant had to come all the way down and field that ball at third base. He never left the dirt.
Yeah, that was in the first inning. The first inning, yeah. he had retired
the little 3-footer or 5-footer, 15-footer, whatever, how far it went. It didn't go far enough that Lester thinks he had to go get it. He never even got off the dirt.
Yeah. So. Well, he was pretty rattled by then, Bob. He had.
Exactly. That's exactly the point. Lindor had already stole first on it, or already stole second on him. He was throwing ball. Yeah. No. I think that only accelerated his. And I think the guy after that he hit, because the guy got a single, and then the next guy he hit. So yeah, by then he was pretty rattled.
Yeah.
No question about it.
Now, do you have any concerns? They're going to bring Corey Kluber back in Game 4, and we saw what happened the last time Kluber had a short rest. He didn't get his normal rest. He's coming back again on that. What's your thoughts on that? Now, you had mentioned earlier in one of our podcasts that you thought they were trying him out before in the series against Toronto, and now it's coming to fruition here in the World Series.
Right, and I think that might have been one of the reasons that he had a relatively short leash from Francona in Game 1. He only really pitched 6 2/3, 6 1/3. So I think Francona had that in the back of his mind, that he wasn't going to let him go out there and throw 110 pitches, because he knew he was going to come back in 3 days. So certainly there's always concern, as you pointed out. The last time he came back on short rest, he didn't pitch very well. So we'll have to see how it goes. But he is definitely going to pitch Game 4 for them, and then we'll see what happens if and when we get to a Game 7. Yeah. Because getting back to your previous comments, there you go. If you go down 2-1, you need Corey Kluber to stop the bleeding. So you need him to be your Game 4 pitcher. Quite frankly, I mean, and then if you do get that far, they have an announcer pitcher for Game 5. Are they going to go back to Braun, or are they going to go with Ryan Merritt? So,
I wonder if they might think about Ryan Merritt. And then, they also activated Danny Salazar. We got to take a look at him last night. He was one of their starters. And, the Cleveland their pitching staff has been lights out. They came into the playoffs with an under 2 ERA. I mean, that's unbelievable. So look for low-scoring games. And, the Cubs, they hit the ball. They live on their home runs. They're going to have to try to manufacture some runs in these games. I don't see him doing it very often. And we'll see if Coach Madden can do a little bit more and press the issue and put some pressure on the Indians pitchers. Because if they're going to sit back and wait for home runs, that Wrigley Field, if that wind is blowing in, it's tough to hit anything out of there. So
right.
What do you envision here? Now, I'm going to put you out on a ledge, and let's see where you go. We got 3 games here in Chicago. What is the goal for the Cleveland Indians? To win just 1 out of the 2? Is that going to be 1 out of the 3? Is that going to be good enough for them to go back to Cleveland and have to win 2 in a row there?
No, I think you want to try to get at least 2. I don't think you want to go back to Cleveland having to win both those games. Personally, I think you try to get you count on, you hope that Josh Tomlin does well for you tomorrow, and then you got Corey Kluber on Saturday, and then on Sunday, I think because you got a travel day on Monday, I think you throw the whole house at them, which Francona is not afraid to do. You use everybody you got if that's what you got to do to win the game. So I would say let's see how Josh Tomlin. Obviously the best scenario would be Tomlin wins and Kluber wins, but if those things don't happen, I think on Sunday, everybody and anybody's available, and that's how I would approach it personally.
Yeah. Were you surprised that they started Trevor Bauer in Game 2 over Josh Tomlin?
I think it speaks back to what I just talked about. I think that Francona went with Trevor Bauer. First of all, Trevor Bauer, he really didn't know what he had in Trevor Bauer. Trevor Bauer pitched 2/3 of an inning in the game that he pitched against Toronto, and also didn't really. He had runners on. He had a little traffic in the short amount that he pitched. So, I think Francona approached it the same way that you would approach that Game 5. Let's put Trevor Bauer out there. Let's see what he's got. But if he doesn't got it, I got a whole bullpen full of people that I can pitch because I got Thursday off, and then on Friday I got Tomlin, and then Saturday I got Kluber. So I would say that might have been the part of the motivation to bring Braun in the second, have Braun pitch in the. And the other thing about Braun is he hadn't, the only time he'd pitched in 9 days was that 2/3 of an inning that he pitched against Toronto. So I think you had to get him some work as well.
Yeah,
and kind of see what you had.
Yeah, I thought Bauer looked okay. Okay, I didn't think he looked bad at all. He was. It wasn't like he was rusty, Bob. The Chicago has a fine hitting team, and they had struck it out so many times in Game 1. It was unbelievable. And they're, hitters are creatures of habit, and you strike out, you got to be able to have a short memory. You get back up there, you get in the box, and you look for your pitch. And the Cubs hitters are very good hitters. They're talented. We mentioned their lineups. They're 24 years and younger. These guys are going to have good games and bad games. And the thing about the Cubs hitters is this, and I'm sure this is the book on them. They can hit fastballs. You don't want to be giving the Cubs hitters a lot of fastballs. You've got to have pitchers out there that can put some spin on the baseball. And I think that's going to be the tactic that the pitchers for Cleveland are going to use. They're going to throw a lot of curveballs, sliders. They're going to back up their changeups, their fastballs with changeups. They've got to keep these Cubs hitters off balance because I believe the Cubs are the best fastball hitting team in baseball. So, let's see what strategy these pitchers can come up with to keep these Cubs hitters off balance because the Cubs will definitely eat the Cleveland Indians pitchers alive if they continue to try to throw fastballs by them. So I think the next 3 games in Chicago are going to be very intriguing to me. I'm looking forward to seeing how the Cubs can handle the pressure. The pressure, I believe, is going to be their biggest. That's going to be their biggest threat. It's not going to be the Cleveland Indians. It's going to be the pressure that they feel from being at home, playing in front of their hometown people, their friends. That game is Game 3. I cannot wait to see tomorrow night.
That's why they play him.
Yep. Well, listen, Bob, thank you very much for joining us here today. I look forward to speaking about the series when it's over here with you on our next podcast. And I want to thank David Perkins for letting us use his studio here and the listeners for tuning into this podcast. We're going to be back on after the World Series to go over the decisions that were made and the big plays. Thanks again. This is Nick Mattos.
Thank you, bro. I'll see you on Sunday.
Yep, and that's my brother Bob Seymour. You can catch us on Overtime with Nick and Bob, Sundays 4 to 6 p.m. on KSRO in Sonoma County. And if you want to, go to our Facebook page, Overtime with Nick and Bob. Susie Baldwin does a good job there, and you can check us out, get to know us a little better. So this is the 10th inning signing off. We're going to be back after the World Series.